New York's notorious and self-proclaimed queen of political prosecutions has now found herself on the other side of the handcuffs. Letitia James, the same New York Attorney General who made a career calling President Trump a fraudster, is now the one facing federal fraudster charges of her own. In a Virginia courtroom, James made a dramatic spectacle of pleading not guilty to 2 felony counts related to mortgage fraud. And now that it's her turn in the hot seat, James suddenly discovered the word weaponization. She told reporters this case is a tool of revenge.
This justice system, which has been used as a tool of revenge, and a weapon against those individuals who simply did their job and who stood up for the rule of law.
This is the same woman who campaigned on Get Trump and then weaponized her own office against the president, now crying that the justice system is being weaponized against her. You really can't make it up. Then came the mainstream media leaks. Headlines claiming career prosecutors thought that the case was weak, but that narrative just got torched. Robert Bose, a financial fraud expert appointed to the Department of Justice, told me those so-called leaks were fake, nothing but misinformation.
They're basically they're getting leaks from the grand jury, and it might be from the prosecutors that were fired. There were a couple other prosecutors in the Eastern District of Virginia, Eric Siebert and Elizabeth Yusi, and it appears in my professional opinion that they really fouled up that case. And now they might be actually talking to ABC News and giving them disinformation and leaking grand jury information, and that's a big problem for them.
Here's what Stephen Miller had to say at the White House.
Letitia James is one of the most corrupt, shameless individuals ever to hold public office. She's guilty not only of those crimes, but of countless more crimes by using and abusing her public office to try to persecute an innocent man, depriving him of his rights, engaging in a conspiracy to obstruct our election, and to overthrow our democratic processes and procedures. She is guilty of multiple significant serial criminal violations.
So, after years of dragging President Trump through the mud and trampling on his constitutional rights, Letitia James is now complaining about political weaponization. The irony writes itself, and the tables have officially turned.
If there is a universe of corruption in New York right now, the allegation is it revolves around Letitia James. What is your take on what Letitia James has been saying since Trump has been in office? She's like almost crying foul when there's no foul yet. She like hit a microphone and a camera a couple of weeks ago and said something about how we're not going to let him get away with this, not going to let him get away with that. What is she talking about? Do you know?
She's an evil, miserable woman. So understand that's how she sees the world from that perspective. She ran on the campaign promise that she was going to go after President Trump. She's collected thousands and thousands of dollars by people who hate President Trump and know that she's going to, just be a pain in his behind. And so she's continued to do just that. I mean, everything this guy does, she files a lawsuit for. She doesn't care. She keeps filing lawsuits. And I think Republicans should do that too. But that's a whole nother story. The reality of it is this woman is miserable. She wants to crush President Trump, and she's failed. She continues to fail. And so she's getting angrier and angrier, and she's looking to take down anyone that she can. I mean, going after Steve Bannon, I think, was kind of a hopeful way of them saying, well, maybe get Steve to flip and to go after his former boss. And the reality of it is that Steve Bannon's not going to flip. He loves President Trump. He loves his country, and they didn't witness any crimes. So why would they do so? That resources from critical cases like violent crimes were pulled away to go after President Trump, and they were enraged. So this is a big issue. I mean, we need to investigate all of these people, because Alvin Bragg literally sent out emails shifting resources. I mean, I even read an email where after the verdict came in, where he's found guilty, he thanked everyone and then kind of like hinted at the idea that resources are going to go back to normal now that they've gotten their conviction. There was no reason to go after President Trump. It was legal gymnastics at best, and they manipulated the law to land these charges, obviously not lasting at this point, but it shouldn't have happened in the first place. These people need to go to prison. We can't just sit here and dismiss it and pretend like it's all going to go away.
Right.
People need to go to prison for what they've done. That's the only way we prevent this from happening in the future. For people like Letitia James and Alvin Bragg, the Manhattan prosecutor, to be investigated. Now, New York Democrats act like a pack. And by that, I mean that they're all united, that they all stay together, they stick together. And I believe that they're all corrupt. So I've outlined a ton, and this is just like this is like a half a dozen at this point of pay-to-play schemes that they've participated in. I mean, one even went to their actual political party. In 2018, the Hospital Association made a significant contribution. They actually donated $1 million to New York Democrats. And then literally weeks later, New York Democrats, because they run all three branches of government in New York, responded by giving Medicaid reimbursement rates an increase. So that meant an extra $140 million went to all of these hospitals and went to all of these groups who charge through Medicaid. So that's a big deal. And that was the New York Democratic Party. Now, they've all benefited off that. They've all pulled in the money. So if you're going to follow the money, that's where you'd start. I believe that happened in 2018. And then it goes down. Kathy Hochul also doing this multiple times as well. These pay-to-play schemes, allegedly. Andrew Cuomo. I detail all of that in the Substack piece. But there's so much here that if you want to find out what was actually happening behind the scenes, I'd go after a lot of their key players and have them turn on Tish James. So they want to save themselves and they're going to speak out. So if there was any prior discussion about how we're going to go after President Trump and some type of message of unity amongst New York Democrats, they would all know of that and they would have been privy to a lot of those discussions. So I think Pam Bondi should 100% open investigation into Cuomo, into Tish James, into Kathy Hochul, into New York Democrats as a whole, and figure out what was happening there with these pay-to-play schemes.
She literally ran for office targeting Donald Trump. I mean, I guess people forget that. Literally, she ran for office targeting Donald Trump. I guess she just didn't ever imagine that he would be in office. This is what Democrats in New York forget, among other things. Donald Trump actually doesn't charge anyone. There's this little tiny thing called the grand jury, and if you'll dust off your copy of the Constitution, you can find it in there. You have to be indicted by your fellow citizens. Tish James was indicted for 2 counts of mortgage fraud, and the defense that it was only $18,000. Good luck in front of a jury. I don't think the limit is $17,000. I don't think you can steal up to $17,000, but 18 is where we draw the line.
So, I mean, you know, and I had the decency not to go to law school like some of you. But I mean, when you look at the case and you look at the evidence and you look at the forms that she filled out, you can't help but, I mean, it seems to me like it's a pretty tough case she's facing.
Yeah, it is. But I mean, honestly, it's hard to convince 12 people of anything other than that you're more handsome than your brother, Rob. That would be easy. Yeah. It's hard this day and age to convince a jury of 12. So what the government has to prove is that she knowingly made a false statement, and then it gets into whether or not she intended to occupy that home in Virginia or rent it out. It is a tough case. But again, the grand jury found probable cause. So what is the alternative? To just take a pass because she's the AG of New York? Just say, you know what, we would do it if your name was Tish Smith, but we're not going to do it if it's Tish James.
You know, one of the things I've always admired about your wisdom on these issues is the importance of keeping the law above politics. And in fact, you know, the only thing that holds us all together, you might be hard to get 12 people to agree to anything, but the one thing that holds us all together is the notion of equal justice under law. Why is that so important?
The law is the most equalizing, unifying force we have in our culture, Charlie. It is the only thing in the world that makes the richest person drive the same speed limit as the poorest person. I mean, there's a reason the lady is blindfolded. And she's not blind. People get that wrong. She's blindfolded, which shows her intent to keep the person in front of her anonymous. Sure, she could let it slip, and sometimes people do, but she chooses to just judge it based on the merits. And that's what is beautiful about our justice system. What's not beautiful is to say, I am going to run to be the Attorney General of South Carolina, the Commonwealth, or New York, targeting an individual, which is exactly what she did. And then, of course, when Alvin Bragg became the DA, he gave us the long list of cases he wasn't going to prosecute. That ain't justice, brother. You want to talk about anti-democratic, right, which is a phrase they love to use on the left. What's more anti-democratic than listing the duly enacted laws that you're going to ignore for the next 4 years?
So I think what you're saying is that that the law is a better equalizer than your local DEI office. And for that, I'm very grateful.
Should the president have gone after the attorney general? Was he right to do that?
Well, he would say he didn't go after her. the prosecutor will say they were just doing justice, which is what Tish James said about going after President Trump. I'm just pursuing justice. That's why it's political.
What do you say? And in this conversation, it doesn't sound like you think that he was wrong in this situation of going after the Attorney General. What do you say to Mr. Mamdani, who came out this morning and said you won't speak out against the president?
We have the same donors. The president was from New York. I am a lifelong New Yorker, right? There are people who know the president. There are people who know me. There are people who contributed to the president, contributed to me. Same people contributed to Kathy Hochul. Same people contributed to Tish James, Mayor Adams, because they're New Yorkers, right? And in terms of Mr. Trump, there is no elected official in the United States of America who had more confrontations with President Trump, more difficulty with President Trump, more fights with President Trump than I did, and more effective
I hear you, but if you won't condemn the president here in this situation, how can a New Yorker believe you'll actually stand up to him?
You condemn him for what?
For the charges against the Attorney General. Democrats right now are saying it was Democrats overall are saying it was the weaponization and politicalization of the system.
That's what the Democrats say, right? And then the prosecutor will say, I went before a grand jury. The grand jury made this decision. If they are right and it was political, then the prosecutor will lose the case. But that's the justice system.
Okay.
And both sides now routinely, whenever anyone gets charged with a crime, it's just politics. And so nobody believes anyone, Dan. Both sides, Democrats and Republicans, believe there's too much politics in the justice system. And it's really a shame because the cornerstone of the democracy was the justice system. And now it seems like there's politics on both sides. And there should be politics on neither side. The Justice Department, I'm a former assistant district attorney, former attorney general, it was supposed to be devoid of politics. And now both sides point fingers at each other saying they're playing politics.
That's all for today. Thank you. If you want global news to keep you up to date on any new developments, please subscribe our channel and forward our content with your friends on social media and email. Thank you very much for keep supporting me. Stay safe, be blessed. Namaste.
Thank you, God bless you, and God bless America.